The famed AC-130 gunship is an aircraft that has been filling a unique role for the U.S. Air Force since the 1960s. Circling above a battlefield for hours on end and raining down sustained, accurate, and devastating fire on enemy forces, the AC-130 has been a vital tool in the counterinsurgency fights and special operations missions the U.S. has been engaged in for decades, and especially in the last 20 years of the global war on terror. But as the focus turns away from low-intensity conflicts and counter-terror operations in permissive airspace to the vast and potentially hotly contested Pacific, where China looms large as a potential peer state adversary, the AC-130 finds itself searching for relevance. The stark reality that Air Force Special Operation Command's most famous and once in-demand aircraft is now having to adapt to a totally new fight is a reflection of greater trends in the special operations community. In this new era of so-called great power competition, if the AC-130s are to justify their high costs, they need to morph into something different. Here is what that could be. The concept of turning a cargo aircraft into a flying gunship was introduced during the Vietnam War, when the U.S. Air Force converted C-47 Skytrain cargo planes into AC-47 gunships, which carried the nickname Spooky. The AC-47s were primarily armed with three 7.62mm miniguns firing out of the left side of the fuselage, which would pour suppressing fire onto enemy forces while circling overhead. Although the AC-47 was adequate for that role, there was a need for a gunship that could carry heavier weapons capable of hitting harder, fly longer missions, leverage new sensor technologies, and orbit at higher altitudes to keep it safer from the anti-aircraft guns that were the main threat to the Spooky. Introduced in 1967, the AC-130As were armed first with four 20mm Vulcan Gatling cannons, and later with a pair of Vulcans and two 40mm Bofors cannons. They also received a growing number of targeting enhancements, including infrared and low-light level TV systems and radars, allowing for far better targeting at night, as the gunships flew almost exclusively under the cover of darkness to help conceal them from ground threats. E variants of the Hercules with more powerful engines and further upgrades followed in the form of the AC-130E, and some eventually received 105mm howitzers in place of one of their 40mm cannons. AC-130As and Es served side by side during the Vietnam War. Starting in 1973, the E models were re-engined again, and the armament package was standardized around two Vulcan cannons, the 40mm Bofors cannon, and the 105mm howitzer. Together with additional improvements to their sensors and other systems, the resulting gunships were redesignated AC-130Hs. AC-130A and Hs continued to serve into the 1990s, seeing action in Grenada all the way through Desert Storm and American involvement in the Balkans. In the late 1980s, the Air Force also began acquiring the final version of the direct-fire-only AC-130 based off of the legacy C-130 platform, the AC-130U Spooky. Sometimes referred to as U-boats, they replaced the two 20mm Vulcan cannons in favor of a single 25mm GAU-12U equalizer rotary cannon, while keeping the 40mm and 105mm guns, and featured significant sensor, self-protection, communications, and other improvements compared to their predecessors. AC-130Hs and Us were in service at the beginning of the global war on terror. Finding itself tasked to the extreme during the depths of the global war on terror, and with Special Operations Command flush with cash, it became clear that the AC-130 could be more than just a gunship. It was time for smart weapons to augment the AC-130's existing direct-fire arsenal. It was undeniable that off-the-shelf munitions could turn the lumbering C-130 into an arsenal ship of sorts that would even be able to strike targets at standoff distances. This was a development that would change the platform forever, but it came into being through modification of the AC-130's Special Operations Transport cousin, the MC-130W Combat Spear. The Air Force originally acquired the MC-130Ws, which were converted from C-130Hs in the late 2000s. The aircraft were to help make up for attrition in existing fleets of MC-130s used to get special operators in and out of dangerous locales, and refuel special operations helicopters and Osprey tilt rotors in flight. The demands of the global war on terror had put serious strain on already aging MC-130Es and MC-130Hs, and all new MC-130Js were still years away from entering service. However, beginning in the 2010s, some combat spears also began carrying what was known as the Precision Strike Package, or PSP. The PSP was originally designed as a roll-on, roll-off kit consisting of sensors and munitions launchers that allowed the MC-130 to begin to evolve into a weapons delivery platform. This package was similar to what the Marine Corps, which was also looking for ways to add kinetic capabilities to their KC-130J fleet, loaded on the decks of their aircraft in the form of the Harvest Hawk kits. With ballooning demand for gunship support and new AC-130Js still further away on the horizon, the PSP-equipped MC-130W configuration became a more permanent feature on the aircraft. As a result, they were redesignated as AC-130W Stinger IIs. The Stinger II's only gun initially was a single 30mm Bushmaster II chain gun. A later Block 20 upgrade added the 105mm howitzer found on previous AC-130s. AC-130Ws also had launchers for what is known as Common Launch Tubes, or CLTs, installed in their fuselages so they could fire kinetic payloads from inside the aircraft. CLTs can be loaded with a variety of munitions, including small GPS or laser-guided AGM-176 Griffin missiles and GBU-44B Viper Strike glide bombs. CLTs make the planes carrying them incredibly flexible weapons delivery systems. It allows an aircraft to fire a tube loaded with a Griffin, and then one loaded with a Viper Strike if that's what the next target calls for. The tubes can even be reloaded in flight. While the internal CLTs have their advantages, they are limited to payloads that will fit inside their tight confines. The AC-130Ws also had the ability to carry other bombs and missiles in weapons racks underneath their wings. These eventually came to include versions of the AGM-114 Hellfire missile, which was very well proven on many platforms, from attack helicopters to the MQ-9 Reaper. The addition of the GBU-39 Small Diameter Bomb, or SDB, a 250-pound winged glide bomb that can reach out and hit targets dozens of miles away, was arguably the biggest departure for the AC-130 family. Now, for the first time, this traditionally direct-fire brute of an aircraft could hit targets on demand at standoff ranges. This drastically changed the flexibility of the AC-130 concept and massively expanded the geographical area it could deliver fires onto at any given time. With these somewhat radical additions to the AC-130 platform that were born out of the Stinger II, the future vision for the type was starting to look more like a bomb truck than a gunship. And that future was coming fast in the form of the AC-130J. Today, the Stinger IIs and Spookies are all gone, with the new AC-130J Ghostриder replacing the entire gunship fleet. The first of these next-generation AC-130s was delivered in 2019, and the fleet will include 37 airframes in total. Built off of the significantly upgraded C-130J Super Hercules platform and lessons learned from the AC-130W program, the J model features new engines and propellers, and an upgraded glass cockpit with heads-up displays and Scorpion helmet-mounted displays for its pilots. Overall, the flight deck is far more automated than its predecessors. The aircraft's mission systems and sensors are all deeply enhanced, as is its self-protection suite and communication systems, which now includes high-bandwidth satellite connectivity. Like the W models, the Ghostриder started life with just one direct-fire weapon, its highly flexible and precise 30mm Bushmaster chain gun. Originally, the 105mm was omitted from the J's planned arsenal, until it became clear that its unique, hard-hitting abilities capable of leveling structures and hardened targets would be sorely missed. That oversight was corrected, and the 105mm has been added back onto the Ghostриder. In recent years, some AC-130Js began receiving an improved variant of its biggest gun, but the future of the AC-135J's 105mm howitzer may once again be in doubt. But the gunship's guns are now just one facet of its kinetic capabilities. Like the AC-130W before it, the J model can employ Hellfire missiles, small-diameter bombs, small glide munition bombs, and Griffin missiles. While this is an impressive and proven arsenal tied to a drastically more capable base airframe, its requirements were penned at a very different time in world affairs. As a result, its relevance, like many other capabilities in the Pentagon's portfolio, are being evaluated as the US military pivots away from two long wars in the Middle East and a mission dominated by counter-insurgency and counter-terror operations. With huge competing budgetary priorities, nothing is safe, including the iconic AC-130. Finding a way to make a fleet of over 36 very costly special operations aircraft relevant to a peer-state threat like China, with its massive anti-access capabilities, and a vast battle space like the Pacific, is no easy task. But the Ghostриder may still have some tricks up its sleeve that could prove highly valuable, although it may have to morph even further away from its gunship roots to realize them. While the AC-130 is one of the most heavily defended aircraft on the planet, with its advanced suite of electronic warfare and infrared countermeasure systems, situational awareness-enhancing data links and communications, as well as its multitude of sensors, it was never meant to fight in heavily contested airspace. Even operating during the day has historically been somewhat rare for these lumbering, fire-breathing combat aircraft. So operating within China's anti-access bubble that is so populated with long-range air defense systems really isn't an option. To mitigate this glaring deficiency, the AC-130 may have to ditch some of its direct fire capabilities and adopt a broader arsenal of truly long-range weaponry. One of the most glaring examples of this shift has already occurred. A long-in-the-works plan to add a high-power laser-directed energy weapon to the AC-130J's arsenal has already been axed. Air Force officials had previously described the idea of arming a gunship with a laser weapon as being ideal for supporting counter-terror and counter-insurgency missions. With the ability to precisely burn a hole in soft targets on the ground, a laser weapon would have seemingly been a highly valued and unique weapon in the AC-130's arsenal. It was planned to be the Air Force's first truly operational airborne laser weapon, but such a capability would have very limited applications in a peer-state conflict. Like the AC-130's guns, the laser was a direct-fire weapon. That, combined with tightening budgets and technical hurdles, meant the end to the AC-130's laser upgrade. Another early example of Special Operation Command's new interest in striking at a distance from the air came via a contract notice in 2021 for a small standoff cruise missile that can fit inside a CLT. The SOCOM proposal called for a weapon with a range of over 200 miles and up to 400 miles. As described in the contracting notice 3 years ago, this small cruise missile would offer U.S. Special Operations aircraft a highly flexible standoff strike capability against static and possibly even moving targets. Fast forward to today, and it appears we are seeing tangible movement in actually developing similar weaponry. At this year's Soft Week conference, a SOCOM briefing highlighted the existence of a small cruise missile. This weapon looks to be similar in size and dimensions as the cruise missile-like ADM-160 miniature air-launched decoy that is already in the Pentagon's inventory. This new standoff munition is able to be launched from the back ramp of a C-130. Just such a weapon could breathe new life into the AC-130, giving it the ability to launch long-range strikes while still providing its established capabilities. The aircraft's advanced self-protection and situational awareness-enhancing suites, as well as its low-altitude operating environment where it can sneak in below ground-based long-range radar, could also allow it to get closer to enemy territory within range of its cruise missiles than any standard C-130s. Other specialized C-130 variants belonging to Air Force Special Operations Command have been heavily involved in the testing of a palletized weapon system called Rapid Dragon. Rapid Dragon offers a way to readily transform existing cargo aircraft into launch platforms for stealthy and highly capable AGM-158 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile or JASSM cruise missiles, and other standoff munitions. The most advanced JASSMs in service have a range of over 600 miles, and another variant is in the works with even greater range. JASSMs can penetrate deep into the most highly defended airspace to reach their targets. JASSM's ship-sinking cousin, the long-range anti-ship missile, poses a major threat to Chinese flotillas and could turn C-130s into ship killers. Giving the AC-130 this capability could drastically expand its kinetic reach, operational flexibility, and as a result, relevance. Maybe even more glaring is the potential for the Ghostриder to launch swarms of drones that can range out on their own over hundreds of miles. These can even leverage the CLTs already installed on the Ghostриder, or larger ones can be deployed en masse via the ramp. Deploying swarms of relatively small, long-endurance drones that can create a mesh network and can surveil, jam, hunt, and kill various targets cooperatively will be a decisive factor in future battles. The AC-130, with its large internal volume and advanced communication system, is well suited to be adapted for deploying these swarms that could wreak havoc and overwhelm the enemy, targeting air defenses, warships, large troop formations, and more. A potentially major sensor upgrade in the form of an active electronically scanned array radar is set to be tested on the Ghostриder, which could greatly expand its standoff weapons delivery abilities. This could provide the AC-130 long-range organic targeting and reconnaissance capabilities. This is in addition to providing improved threat warning and general situational awareness, as well as potent new electronic warfare capabilities. These new weapons and sensors could mark a revolution of sorts for the venerable AC-130 as it seeks to retain a role in what war planners are forecasting for future conflicts. But the AC-130's current capabilities also offer something to a Pacific fight when paired with a new tactics playbook. The inherent ruggedness and short-field capability of the C-130J would allow the Ghostриder to operate from any number of austere locations far closer to the fight and more covertly than other types. This fits directly with the Air Force's Agile Combat Employment, or ACE, strategy, in which small groups of aircraft will operate for brief periods from unexpected forward locations before packing up and moving on before the enemy can target them. A number of smaller airstrips in the theater, including on remote islands, could accommodate a C-130J. Paired with standoff munitions, this could make the AC-130 a powerful weapons delivery platform. The AC-130's ability to loiter for long periods and rapidly spot and engage threats below could also make it a valuable force protection asset. Harbors and small islands where U.S. and Allied forces are operating will have to be protected from lower-end threats like drone boats and amphibious raids. The Ghostrider's guns, missiles, and guided bombs could make quicker work of a swarm of small boats than any platform in the Air Force's inventory. Paired with an AESA radar, a loitering AC-130 could also provide aerial threat detection and cueing for ground-based air defenses, or even be able to engage lower-performance aerial threats itself. Even the AC-130's satellite communication system could provide global connectivity while on the ground for forces at remote locales. The U.S. Air Force recently released a video showing one of its AC-130J Ghostriders firing its 30mm cannon and 105mm howitzer at the ex-USS Dubuque during a recent sinking exercise in the Pacific. The Austin-class amphibious warfare ship was pummeled with weapons and sent to the bottom of the ocean as part of the larger biennial Rim of the Pacific, or RIMPAC, exercise. Employing AC-130s in maritime operations is not new, as the war zone has reported on in the past. The role of AC-130 gunships at sea has historically been heavily centered around engaging lower-end threats in lower-threat airspace, such as swarms of small boats. The video from the RIMPAC 2024 SyncX highlights how the Ghostriders, and their guns specifically, could be utilized against larger ships and in instances where the objective might not be to sink the vessel, but to incapacitate it or hostile individuals, such as during special operations boarding operations. The aircraft's 30mm cannon, paired with the right ammunition in particular, could be used to engage personnel and material on a ship's deck without destroying the ship. While the idea of an AC-130 attacking a modern enemy warship with air defense capabilities is irrelevant, reconnoitering, interdicting, and destroying enemy shipping in lower threat areas, or even finishing off damaged enemy ships could be added to the AC-130's repertoire. The Air Force is already taking a hard look at the Ghostrider's current and planned future capabilities in an attempt to ensure its relevance going forward, but what exactly its configuration will be remains unclear. Maybe the biggest change that could come for the AC-130 is once again the deletion of its big crowd-pleaser 105mm howitzer. While this weapon is incredibly capable of dealing devastating blows even to hardened targets, it's a big, heavy, drag-inducing apparatus, and its ammunition takes up a lot of space. In a Pacific fight, beyond trying to mortally wound large ships, its uses may be limited. Upgrading to the new 105mm has already been put on hold for the AC-130J fleet, further indicating a big change may be on the horizon, with the entire fleet losing these weapons. Considering cruise missiles and drones could make use of that space, the trade could ensure the AC-130 fleet remains intact for decades to come, and it would still retain its more versatile 30mm cannon, keeping its gunship title intact. Like so many other assets in the DoD's inventory, the legendary AC-130 needs to make a case for itself in this volatile new era. And it can be argued that even though the Pentagon would like to turn away from the wars of the past, the enemy has a vote too. Recent developments in the Middle East, a region where the US remains very heavily engaged, clearly highlight this inconvenient reality. But the DoD's budget is flowing west to confront growing tensions in the Indo-Pacific, and if the AC-130 fleet is to survive, at least at its current strength, it has to find a place for itself in that potential future battle, not in the ones it previously fought.